Hey everybody, it's Kawari again from KawariaMindsBitcoins.com, and I would like to thank you yet again for taking the time to tune into this video, and I hope that it brings you some value. On today's video, I would like to touch on why I personally believe that Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies are one of the best ways wealth distribution can be created, especially in this current age that we're in. Just like we had other technological advances that created wealth for the early adopters in their time, so is the case with cryptocurrencies. So what are some of these technological advances that I'm talking about? For one, about 300 years ago, we had the major industrial revolution. So what happened here is that the society, they transitioned to new manufacturing processes, moving away from hand production methods of manufacturing, I should say. And here we started seeing the rise of things like steam power, and machine tools came to use, and even factory systems started being put into place. Then more recently, we had the digital revolution, which is actually comprised of digital computing and communication technology. And they actually really exploded in the early 90s. As we all know, mass production of this revolution has led us to the present day's technological innovations that have transformed traditional business techniques. And all this is thanks to the internet, right? Now, we are at the rise of the next revolution. What am I talking about? We're talking about digital currency, the revolution of digital currency. So $230 billion is the total market capitalization that's been invested into cryptocurrencies at this point in time. And slightly over 120 billion of that is the market capitalization that solely belongs to Bitcoin, right? So because of the Bitcoin technology, the power to create and exchange money, it has now been granted to every person on earth, and it's just no longer the monopoly of kings or presidents or even rulers of the land. There's actually a lot of wealth being created right now, guys, a lot, and it's happening right before our very own eyes. But it's happening so fast that most people are actually oblivious to it. I remember when I was a little girl, right, about 20 years ago, so I grew up in Kenya, and whenever I came across the Guinness Book of World Records, I would be in so much amazement. I would sit there and go through that book for days at a time. One of my favorite categories was looking at the list of the wealthiest people in the world. In the late 80s into the 90s, it was consistently, and it always happened, that it was the Sultan of Brunei. He actually had a golden throne. He had hundreds of Ferraris at that time, gold-plated Rolls Royce, and even I believe he had gold toilet seats in his house at that time, mansion, right? And obviously he made it to the top of the list of the wealthiest people in the world. Then in the 90s and early 200s, we started seeing people like Bill Gates and a bunch of other geeks and nerds that were starting to make their way to the top of this list. So where did these people come from? If you really think about it, how can a bunch of geeks just writing software all day, probably wearing old t-shirts and sneakers, walking out of their dorm rooms or even maybe their parents' garages, how is it that so suddenly they're becoming wealthier than a sultan who has a golden throne and golden toilet seats? How does this happen? So it happened because there's so much more value in a global network that is allowing people to store and exchange information than there is in shiny rocks or even fossil fuel that's coming from underground. And of course, we all know that these are capitalized by just a handful of people compared to the internet, of which anybody from whatever class you were in, from whatever walk of life or background you come from, you can use the internet and you can capitalize on the internet. So the exact same thing is happening today in the cryptocurrency space. Suddenly, we have a new generation of geeks who worked night and day, toiling hard while trying to really establish this Bitcoin network, right? And they were doing this voluntarily for years and years and years. And now they're being paid back for the efforts that they exerted using the same technology that they helped build. How amazing is that? And then traders who initially saw the value of the projects and then invested small amounts of money back in that time into the cryptocurrencies that they believed in, they are now seeing literally over 200,000% growth in those small investments that they made back then. So the pioneers, they are paving the way for the new generation of new investors who are now ushering billions of new users onto this new internet economy that we have. And some of you, you may know that, you know, there's actually quite many millionaires and a handful of billionaires who have actually been created thanks to Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. And there's more and more and more being created every single day. So wealth creation, guys, it's a real thing, and it's a really good thing if you'd ask me. And concentration of this wealth, it's not necessarily a bad thing, right? How has this wealth been acquired? First of all, that's very important because it is honest wealth, and it is not wealth that has been created through corruption. You know, a lot of us people from Africa, we know of these. And so it's not been created through corruption or some of the other shady ways that we have seen our leaders in our countries do it. Bitcoin is honest money, and it comes with no coercion, no unfair advantage, no abuse of power, no abuse of labor or people, like we saw the exploitation of an entire race right here in America. None of that is needed to establish a new the newfound wealth of those accumulating Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. This is why we find that trust fund babies, they're quick to speak badly or speak poorly of Bitcoin because they can't accept the fact that some geeks who took an early risk on this unknown technology that no one knew of, they're suddenly getting to be wealthier than them. And I can imagine in the very same way, that was the thought of a guy sitting on a golden throne or even gold toilet seats. He must have scoffed at the idea of, you know, some of these kids walking out of a college dorm room could suddenly become wealthier than he is. I'm talking about people like Bill Gates and other, you know, Michael Dell. Is it Michael Dell? So those people ended up becoming very wealthy. So Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, they will make a lot of people very, very, very financially independent. And that's a great thing, guys. Millions of people who never had access to capital or funding will now be able to pursue their goals and build things and businesses that can ultimately help themselves, their families, and even humanity as a whole, right? There was actually a certain developer. He was once asked, so if you worked voluntarily to help secure the Bitcoin network, how is it that you get paid? So this was his response. And of course, I do not have the exact words, so I'll paraphrase it, right? So he says, Bitcoin pays me. It grows in value, and I continue giving my time so that my value continues to grow. It's a vicious circle, right? And I think that's pretty much all that needs to be said here today, guys. As Bitcoin miners, me as a Bitcoin miner, we are actually giving our time and our computing power to secure the network. And while we're verifying these transactions, and in return, we are getting paid in Bitcoin, which then continues to grow our net worth. So basically, Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, they are helping to spread wealth around the world. And that's a fantastic thing. We no longer need permission from our corrupt governments or even leaders. We are living this gilded age where many of the super wealthy people were holding more money than the cumulative lower 99% of the population, right? I hope that makes sense. So it is my hope that in the future, cryptocurrencies and other online means of payment and investments, that they continue to help stop the shrinkage of the middle class, and even help to rise the lower class from despair and poverty, as we have seen in some countries like India and even, you know, other third world countries. So that is it for now, guys. As always, I appreciate you for taking the time to watch this video. If you found some truth to this video, or if you even liked it, if you found any value in it, please leave a comment or even like the video. Additionally, please do not leave without subscribing to the channel and ringing the little bell button to the side. These few actions, they'll only take you a couple of moments, and they will help this channel to grow so that more and more people can be reached with this information that I'm sharing. So Also, as I mentioned earlier, right, I am a Bitcoin miner and I regularly hold live sessions showing you how you can leverage the greatest asset in the world. It is the current greatest asset in the world, and that's Bitcoin that I'm talking about. Did you know that in the last 6 years alone, Bitcoin has grown over 210,000% in its value? Yeah. That's right. And actually, experts say that by 2020, Bitcoin could be at $100,000 a piece. So to take part or to attend any of these sessions, let's connect on my website. My website is Kagweria Mines Bitcoins. I will share it right here on the screen. And I will send you an email letting you know when this next session will be held so that you can join me. So that's it for now, guys. I am going to sign off here. As always, I remain yours truly, Kagweria from KagweriaMinesBitcoins.com. You have a wonderful day or wonderful evening or wonderful night wherever you may be, and be blessed as always. Cheers.